Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial on how to read a grading rubric for a final assignment in one of my courses. My courses have two kinds of assignments in terms of how they're graded. I have practice assignments and final assignments. And I've already done a set of tutorials on the grading rubric and the grading feedback form for practice assignments. So if that's what you're looking for, you need to go find those tutorials. Um, a final assignment is pretty typically one that pretty obviously is not a practice assignment. So we're not practicing the skill. We're giving our final demonstration of it. And final assignments are, well, they include, but they're not limited to, things like final projects, final papers, um, really anything that's not a practice assignment. So here's how to understand the grading rubric for one, and there'll be a companion tutorial on how to read the grading feedback form. So the grading rubric for final assignment um, usually doesn't have any base points, right? So we don't spot you any points on final assignments. You have to earn all of them. This is a real performance opportunity. Um, the first category that you typically find is there's a section for submission, and there are two items under that. One is timeliness, and the next one is typically file submitted. Okay? And on the grading rubric, you'll see two sections. I'm sorry, you'll see two boxes within each of the items. So for timeliness, you'll see the requirements, and they typically say must be submitted by the date and time indicated on the weekly schedule. Okay, so go look at the schedule and find out exactly when this is due. And if it's on time, typically it's you earn all the points, and if it's late, you typically lose 10 points, or sometimes in a final project, I just don't have the points to allocate to lateness, so it's only 5. Okay, so it's usually like 5 or 10 points off for that. The file requirements are not that different from the typical file requirements for the practice assignments. Typically, there's a number of files that you're supposed to submit. They're supposed to be of a particular type. In this case, the example came from a Python course I taught in the summer of 2017. And I was expecting students to submit two files to the assignment submission activity. Whenever I can, I try to limit it to one file. If we limit it to one file, it's usually a zip file, and we want the files to be properly named, properly organized, have the right format, all those kinds of things. Typically, on a file submission activity, if you meet the expectations, you get all the points. If you come very, very close to that, you get half the points. And if you're not very close to it, you don't get any of the points. Now, in the example here, I've allocated 10 points to the file quality. Again, in some cases on a final assignment, I've only got room for 5 points for this. So it depends on the assignment, how many points it's going to have. But typically the way I assign the credit is pretty standard here. Okay. Um, there's no distinction in my rubrics for final assignments or final project. There's no distinction between the points that you get for the content that you hand in and other points that you get for being kind of on time or the format of the file or anything like that. Because there's no special practice assignment grading deal. Okay, so you will notice that when we get down to things that have to do with the content that you hand in, um, there's for instance, here we've got project characteristics, and the first item under it is suitability. It says 20 available points. It doesn't say 20 available content points because that's just part of the practice assignment deal. It's not part of the final assignment deal. Okay, so this is the real deal. There are no special grading deals here. So in this case, the first item under project characteristics is suitability, and the next one was state of completion. Okay, and I think that was it for that one. Well, what was the next one? State of completion, plans for the future, testing. Oh, so in this case, there was only one section, and then there were these individual items, right? And again, we have a list of requirements, okay, and the number of points associated with that item, okay, and then something that is different on a typical final assignment is if you meet all expectations to get 95 instead of 100. So this isn't the target score for final assignments is a good solid A, which is a 95. To get higher than a 95, you need to substantially exceed expectations. So my what I anticipate is a few people in each class will do truly exceptional work, and they'll get this score on this 100% score. But the average good job will get a 95. Okay? So when you add all these things up, you get 100 points. Okay? Now, it turns out because of the scale that we have on handing things in on time and handing things in the proper file format, they're actually scaled to 100 points for meeting the requirements. So if you meet expectations for everything, you wind up, I think, with a 96. Okay? So that's how this all works out. How do you use this? I think that it's really important to use the list of requirements as a checklist. Well, you really ought to use the whole rubric as the checklist for your assignment. Okay? Typically, if you are writing a paper or a project, a report, you want to organize it according to the sections and the items in the rubric, because that's going to make it easiest for me to find the things to grade and give you the points that you need. And then within each item, you just want to go through each of the requirements and make sure that you met the requirement, right? You'd be surprised how many people hand in assignments and forget to check the list of requirements. And so something just kind of, sort of isn't on their mind um, because they're busy, and this isn't the only course that they're taking. And so they leave points on the table just by not taking the time to use this as the final checklist. So I would recommend that you use these rubrics, one, as some kind of a guide to how you want to organize and structure, whatever kind of a document you're going to hand in. And then once you have it done, just go through it section by section, making sure that you met all the requirements. Just that little bit of extra care at the beginning and at the end is going to pick you up, well, I would say a minimum of 5 and probably 10 points. So, and that's what we want. We want everybody to get a great high score. So that's it for how to read the rubric. Um, I guess one thing is a typical assignment for me is graded on 100 points, right? So um, if you get the highest percent credit in each one of the items under each one of the each one of the sections, it's going to add up to 100. Okay, with the caveat that meeting the expectations on these final assignments is going to get you about a 95 or a 96. Okay. All right. So my next tutorial is going to be on how to read the associated grading feedback form for this kind of assignment, and I invite you to play that one as well. Until then, I'll say bye-bye.